Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Publicly Buzzed Live on a special presentation on a Monday night. Very unusual for us to be here tonight, but I thank everyone for coming in. Tonight is a special night. We have none other than Turtleboy and Bob Motta with us here tonight. Let me get everybody over here real quick. Make sure I hit the right window. What's up, guys?
Hello, hello.
What's up, everybody?
What's going on?
Thank you guys so much for being here. This is going to be a great show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely, brother. I'm glad. Thank you for being here again. The catalyst right now in the karenread case. I mean, dude, going all over the place. You were on a channel last night doing this shit. You're on Court TV. And Bob Motta, the person that introduced us to this case. And I mean, dude, this shit is wild as hell.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a wild ride. Let's just put it that way.
And every single day, it's getting a little bit more traction. And that's, I mean, a large part because of you, dude.
Well, you know, I like to think that there's other people that have a lot to do with it too. I kind of started this movement, I guess, but it's taken on a life of its own. And there's a Facebook page, the Justice for John and Karen page, which I highly recommend everyone join. It's like 22,000 strong now, and it's people in there every day who are very concerned about this case. And you know, I was thinking about this the other day. You know, it's more than just a case for people now. I think people are taking it very personally. And they're personally invested in this to the point where, like, if something were to go wrong with this to karenread, I would be personally devastated by that. And I think a lot of other people would too. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any chance that happens. But, you know, it's just if karenread were convicted of murder for some strange reason, like, that's how revolutions start. Like, you cannot, that would be we would all be witnessing a modern day lynching happening right in front of us. And it's basically the state saying, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Like, what are you, like, we are going to take this woman who you all know is innocent and we know is innocent. And the people who killed them are obviously these people over here, but we're just going to convict this woman of murder and send her to jail for the rest of her life. And what the fuck are you going to do about it? And that would basically be that is how revolutions start. We cannot allow our government to do this to free people.
Real quick. Oh.
Yeah, Canton's about an hour from me. I'm in Central Mass, but it's a small state, you know? Well, you know, like, we are in the Boston market out here, so and I write a lot about it, New England stories and stuff like that. Boston's obviously my biggest demographic, but what I first saw the story last year when it was in the news that a Boston police officer was killed. So whenever when a cop is killed, you know, that's usually the type of story that I'm interested in. Period. But this was a different kind of story and I had no interest in writing about it because I just thought it was tragic. I'm like, oh. Because it was framed as an accident. Like, that's what they said, that this was this horrible accident, that this woman who has no criminal record, she seems nice enough, she accidentally hit this guy in a snowstorm and had no idea it happened, and then he died of frostbite. I'm like, wow, that's tragic. You know, that's the most, I mean, I didn't even know what my take would be on that, besides, like, wow, that's horrible, that really sucks. But then I almost forgot about the case.
Hey, real quick, guys. Yeah, I hate to break in. I don't think I have Bob's sound here.
Did you click the little box on Bob's video like everybody else? The control audio via OBS thing?
Control audio.
It should be on his camera.
I just see mute.
I heard him, yeah.
No, we hear you, Bob, but the audience can't hear you.
Like, I don't know what you mean, Dan. I didn't do.
When you, no, it's not you. So, Stevie, when you add his camera in, remember you have to click that box that says control audio via OBS.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me add him back in here and try that. Yeah. Gotcha. Sorry, boom.
You shouldn't have to re-add him.
Silent Bob, he says.
All right, Bob, say something, brother. There he is. Okay, gotcha.
That's a running gag. Our buddy Jay.
Gotcha.
It's Jay and not so silent Bob.
Not so silent Bob.
He's silent tonight because we cut him out there. Sorry about that, Bob. Hey, and also working on a new system here. The one-click system is getting a little bit of a test tonight. So
Yeah, this is only the second time we've used
It's
it.
failing. It's failing miserably.
You're,
so
well, you're
far.
rocking and rolling now, baby. It wouldn't be a Publicly Buzzed live show if there wasn't technical issues, first of all.
I always need an excuse to promote OnlyDans. Just a tip.
Son of a bitch!
Real
All
quick
right,
though,
so I had asked Turtleboy kind of how he had gotten involved, and he was telling. So, in terms of kind of, and I know people want to keep calling it a conspiracy in terms of what we think, and when we say I am of the same mindset as you are, as how this went down. Like I told you off air, as soon as I found your content, man, I fucking dug in. And I was like, damn, you know, I mean, I'm a defense attorney by trade. I've been doing it 20 plus years. I know cops lie. I know cops do dirty shit. I know that there's great cops. You know what I mean? It runs the gamut like it does with any profession. You got good and you got bad. And to me, this wasn't even that. To me, this was a family that something went awry in that party, like quickly, and it escalated quickly, and hammers were thrown, and John got his ass beat, and he got beat more than they anticipated, and they were extremely worried. I mean, because if you look at it realistically from a criminal defense attorney's perspective, even an aggravated battery where they did that much damage to him, like fucks the Albert clan, like irrevocably. You know what I'm saying? So like if they just beat his ass, not even killing him inside the house, but just beat him down to the point where, all right, he was fucked up. Maybe we drag him outside and we just leave him out there and kind of see what happens. And obviously we know the text messages start happening. Like there's that part of me where I want to think that they didn't, obviously whatever happened in that house wasn't intentional. I don't think that they brought him there to murder him. That's not what went down. No. I think it was something that went.
Yeah, I don't think they were going to
way
woke up
sideways,
that day
right?
thinking they were going to murder this guy.
well, there was
Right.
six
So
people in the house. There's no way.
You know, and the dog starts biting his arm. Like that, no one's telling me a fucking snowplow or that Lexus did that shit to that guy's arm ever.
No, of course not. No,
Right. I
like,
mean, like, anybody with eyes that looks at the autopsies that you've posted,
right.
I mean, every injury is inconsistent with what the state is saying.
Of course. And when you said earlier that it's like your opinion that this is a conspiracy, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. Okay, like it's not an opinion that there's a conspiracy here. If Karen Read did not kill him, which she could not have possibly done simply by looking at the state of her vehicle and the state of John O'Keefe, it was impossible. Therefore, someone else had to do it, and there was a conspiracy to do it. The only thing we don't know that is a matter of opinion is who did what and when. Like that is the only thing we don't know, but we do know it was a conspiracy.
Yeah, and like I guess my point was I hate the term conspiracy in terms of what we're trying to describe and what you're trying to describe as happening. It's more of a cover-up because when I see people like Offendaffer out there like phrasing it, it's a huge conspiracy. No, it's not a huge conspiracy.
Because it's a bad word. The C word's a bad word.
It's a bad word, man. Like it, but we'll use the other C word. It was a cover-up because they were trying to cover up what had happened in that house. And the most convenient thing that they could think of in a time crunch was, well, Karen left. Why don't we just say that she accidentally backed into him?
They didn't even have to say that. They had this, but they didn't even say that. All they said was he didn't come in. That's the entire conspiracy. People act like this is so complicated. They get their story straight. Their entire story was he didn't come inside the house. I don't know what the fuck happened to him. You're the cops. You figure it out. And so like, and then Jen McCabe's like, well, she was saying something about like, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And you know, like, and Jen McCabe, if you look at her phone logs, she is on the phone the entire day. Keep in mind, she didn't go to sleep the entire day. She didn't go to sleep. She was on the phone talking to people all day. Oh my God. Karen was acting so suspicious. Can you believe what she was saying? Like she was the quarterback of the whole thing. She was the one that like, the men weren't crafty enough to do what Jen McCabe did on that day.
And so Turtleboy, for our viewers that aren't as steeped in the Karen Read case knowledge, kind of give, because I know we got a ton of Turtle Riders in here, and welcome y'all. I'm Bob Motta, by the way. I hosted a Defense Diaries podcast. and I love your boy here. But like give my listeners and Publicly Buzzed guys like kind of an overview of like the main players and who they are.
So the home is owned by a man named Brian Albert. He's a Boston police officer. I believe he's a sergeant too. He's been in the force for like 30 years. He was on this TV show called, or this YouTube show called Boston's Finest. You know, he's a connected Boston cop. And John O'Keefe is also a Boston cop, but they don't know each other really. So that's a little confusing because they both live in Canton and they're both Boston cops, but it's a big force. They don't know each other. And the woman we're talking about here, Jen McCabe, who is also in the house, she is Brian Albert's sister-in-law. So his wife that's his sister. And his wife is in the house too, Nicole Albert. And Jen McCabe's husband, Matt, is also in the house. So those four are all in the house. Also in the house that night is an ATF agent by the name of Brian Higgins, who is buddies with Brian Albert. Also in the house that we know of that night were a girl named Julie Nagel, who dates Brian Albert's son, her friend Sarah Levinson, who is a nurse at a local hospital, and Colin Albert. Colin Albert he's a 17-year-old nephew of Brian Albert. His father is Chris Albert, who is is on the board of selectmen and owns a local pizza shop that makes mediocre chicken parm in the center of town. And so that he is like in the Chris Albert family, Chris and Colin lived like 2 or 3 houses down from John and had issues with John because Colin would throw beer cans on his lawn. They were just bad neighbors basically. Right. And not enough motive to kill someone. People will often bring that up though. Well, that's not motive to kill. Like you said, they had no intention of killing him. Right. That was not the plan. Like obviously you don't plan on. Yeah. Like you could come up with a better way to kill someone
that went like sideways, you know, and like I don't know if it was you, Turtleboy, who kind of brought up the concept. Like it does strike me that it was potentially like a weight, like a plate weight, you know, like that somebody just like cracked him over the head with like a 10-pound like plate, you know, like I mean, who knows what went on. And there's one of the things I wanted to ask you, man, when I was looking. So I was digging through all the documents that our friend of the show and my friend sent me, Sleuthy, because I got her digging into this, and when she digs in, she digs in. So, but I was looking at basically the incident report, and I wanted to ask you this, and I know that it was altered at some point, but if you look through kind of like the cast of characters in terms of who they interviewed, and it has the 3 primary cops who came in, right? So when you get down to the evidence that they had this glass that John O'Keefe allegedly was carrying, but then they talk about 6 solo cups with blood and water in them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like,
so it's a little confusing because there's 2 police departments involved here. When they first get to the scene at 6 o'clock, that is the Canton Police Department who's first to respond, and it's their crime scene initially. When he dies at 7:53 a.m., the state police officially take over, and they do a search at 5:45. Now, keep in mind, over a foot of snow has fallen in that 12-hour period. So when the Canton police first arrive at the scene at 6 o'clock in the morning, they find on the scene just a broken cocktail glass next to him and just 6 droplets of blood, which they put in red Solo cups. I assume they came from inside the house, but we're not entirely sure where those came from. It doesn't really matter. The point is it can fit in 6 red Solo cups, so there's not much blood. So that means like the blood is somewhere. He had a gigantic gash in the back of his head.
Yeah.
It was probably somewhere. That house is probably covered in blood, but we won't know because they never searched the house.
It's crazy, dude.
If any of us here,
and how long did it take them to sell the house after? Did the heat start, catching up? They sold it,
don't even get to like the shocking shit yet. We're gonna get there, man. We're gonna get it just piles on. It's unbelievable.
Like that's the totality of the evidence when they first arrive is the pieces of glass and the 6 droplets of blood or whatever. That's it. And he's got no shoe on too. So if you're a cop and you come across this dead body on this lawn, he's got no shoe, you're going to assume the other shoe is probably in that house right there because that you're on the property of. But they never searched the house. They didn't, and they don't know anything. So then the state police take over. 12 hours later in the day, after a foot of snow has fallen, a new investigator is in charge named Michael Proctor. And Michael Proctor leads his team, finds multiple pieces of gigantic red Lexus taillight that somehow the Canton Police Department missed. And it was on top of a foot of snow. Somehow it rose when it snowed. Like, we have crazy snow here in Massachusetts. When it snows, objects rise for some reason, and it rose to the top. And they also found his shoe. So his missing shoe just magically appeared in a foot of snow. So they find all this stuff, which is a lot more incriminating to Karen Read because it makes it look like she backed into him. But what we now opine is that the original plan, like, why was that shot? Why were those glasses there? I think the plan was to make it look like she hit him over the head with it. Because, but then when they saw that she had accidentally backed into John's car earlier in the morning when she went out looking for him and hit it, and not dented the taillight, and not shattered, cracked the taillight, cracked it. They realized, let's go with that instead. Let's say she backed into him, which is just an absurdly ridiculous plan considering the state of his body, and it wouldn't match up. And I guess they hoped that nobody would ever look into this, or that this woman would just give up. I don't know what their plan was. You look at those autopsy photos, it really says it all.
Those things are stunning. And
Yeah.
I've handled some horrific cases in my time. I mean, my second season's about this quadruple. 4 people were murdered over 5 years, 2 double homicides. He was a serial killer. I've seen a lot of autopsies, man, and nothing about any of those autopsies in any way, shape, or form fits their narrative at all. And it's like I'm looking at it through the lens of a criminal defense attorney, and I happened to be watching the other night when you had when you jumped in on that stream with Survive the Survivor, and they had
with Wendy. Oh,
crazy face on there.
Hey, Wendy's coming on tonight. Spoiler alert: Wendy Murphy is here. She's behind the scenes. Here she comes,
There's
baby.
0% chance she's coming on here tonight.
she should never be allowed to talk about this.
She should never be able to talk about anything.
Anything,
right? Dude, my wife was like, who's a criminal defense attorney as well, was like on tilt completely. Like, she doesn't fuck with socials often, but she was like, who is this woman? Talking about defense attorney class and how we're all taught to, pick
find stupid
juries. And like, we go to, we hire all the PR marketing firms to skew the story in the media. Dude, it was crazy time. And
they call us the conspiracy theorists.
Right.
We're the conspiracy theorists.
We're the nuts. Yeah. We're the crazy ones.
If you look at those pictures of John O'Keefe's body and Karen Read's Lexus, and you think that did that to that body, then you're the conspiracy theorist, not me. You're the crazy person.
Exactly.
That's the way it needs to be framed here.
Exactly. And I want to give to Proctor because you've done the digging on Proctor. That is like because that's a thing. Like how he ends up becoming the lead investigator from the state police is a thing, and it ties into how they ultimately end up directing this investigation. And the one other thing that I want the people to understand is this got indicted by a grand jury, and originally they went in just trying to throw a manslaughter charge on her. Right. And I don't know how it works because I'm not a Massachusetts lawyer, I'm an Illinois lawyer, but here it's very, very unusual for the grand jury to take it upon themselves to up the charge from a manslaughter to a second-degree murder charge where there is intent involved, because the difference between manslaughter and murder is always intent. Manslaughter can be the heat of the moment type shit, or it can be vehicular where it's an accident, where you shouldn't have been driving and you accidentally hit somebody. But when the grand jury on their own, at least from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, on their own accord upped it to a second-degree murder case, that changes the whole narrative of this thing. Because like my thing is like, if Alberts and McCabe and that crew is sitting in the house and they're like, oh, fuck, she's checking, like, how long is it going to take him to die? When she's texting at 2:37 in the morning, like, how long is it going to take him to freeze to death out there if we just drag him out there? They're already worried about if he's going to survive, because that was kind of my whole thing. I think that text spoke volumes to me that
The
at
Google
point
search
that
me.
they
The
brought
Google
him
search.
out, that they didn't think he was dead. You know what I mean? He's still breathing.
Yeah,
Like
he
all these
wasn't
guys.
dead.
Yeah, right. So they, at that point, they don't want him to come to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because
no.
it's not going to be a good day for the
It
Alberts.
was a very relevant question that she asked Google, was how long to die in cold. Like she needed to know the answer to that question. Like, so, and the answer is about like in 19-degree weather like that, the answer is about an hour and a half. Like that's,
Yeah, dude,
that's
it
all
stunned
it takes.
me. Well, that text, obviously, when I was going through on your content and you had like whatever it is, the 27 things that you have to ignore in order to think that it went down the way that they say it did. And I got to that text, man, I was like, holy shit, and then I wanted to ask you, because I know pleadings wise, you're following it incredibly closely, but in terms of the pleadings, so I know that what is it, Yannetti? Is that the defense guy?
That's one of the defense attorneys. That's the Boston defense attorney.
That's the Boston guy. So so he's been filing the motions. I know he's been trying to get their phones.
That's Alan Jackson who's been doing that. He's the Hollywood guy. So she has two defense attorneys, David Yannetti, the local guy, and then Alan Jackson, the guy who represented Hollywood scumbags everywhere, like Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein. But she hired him because there was a situation up here a couple years ago where some 19-year-old kid from Nantucket accused Kevin Spacey of, grabbing his dick in the bar or something like that. But then as it turns out, the kid had text messages where he was like messaging his friends about it. And he was like, should I lead him on? Like,
I remember that actually. I remember that.
Thought it was hilarious. And his mother was a TV reporter. She deleted all the messages. And so Alan Jackson hires a forensic auditor who goes through the phone and finds all the deleted messages. And he cross-examines them at an evidentiary hearing about them. And the dad is almost held in contempt in court. Like he almost blows up on Alan Jackson and just completely blows it. They're like, well, it doesn't matter. Why are you talking about that? Who cares? And they lose it on him. And the case gets dropped that day.
Wow.
And so he's just a masterful attorney when it comes to stuff like that. And this case should really be the difference between that case and this case is the district attorney's office. In that case, the district attorney's office is like, yeah, we can't go forward with this. This is absurd. Right. And that's what I assumed that this district attorney's office would do, but they're not, because they are corrupt themselves. And, obviously they didn't plan on killing John O'Keefe. They weren't in on it, the district attorney's office, but, they're all chummy together. They're like the district attorney, Michael Morrissey, there was a retirement party last year for the police chief, Ken Berkowitz, who also found taillight a week afterwards on Fairview Road. He was driving by on a whim and he found more taillight. Like he was like left out of the conspiracy and he's like, oh, I found taillight too. And so he retires 4 months after this and he has a big retirement party, and in attendance was an FBI agent who spoke about him. There was the district attorney who spoke wonderfully about him, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins and Brian's brother, Kevin Albert, who's also a Canton cop, are all in attendance. And it's just, when you see the visuals of this, we call it the circle jerk. At the circle jerk, it's like they're all just cracking jokes and having a good time with their thick Boston accents and laying it on and be like, oh, yeah, Kenny Berkowitz. Oh, yeah, busting chops. And it's just like, oh, I get it now. Once you see this, you're like, oh, they're all freaking buddy. And like they all know each other. And who the hell is Karen Read? She's expendable. And they're like, let's just throw this bitch under the bus. Fuck it. It's not worth disrupting this nice thing we have here where we all know each other.
Right. And, I mean, there's the concept that the thin blue line doesn't exist anymore. That's bullshit. It definitely still exists. Old boy networks still exist.
Unless a cop kills another cop. Like, what about the thin blue line for John O'Keefe? He was also a cop.
Exactly. See, it seems like it's, but in terms of them protecting another cop, I don't know, man. So, so when Jackson files the motion, so he tries to get his hands on these phones, right? He tries to get McCabe's phone, Albert's phone. And so what happens with that motion? Like they got him to some extent, right?
They're still fighting for it.
McCabe voluntarily handed over her phone over a year ago, thinking if I delete this stuff, it's good. And so she hands it over. The state police do a full data extraction led by Michael Proctor, and this Google search doesn't come up. And Alan Jackson thinks something's funny about that. So he hires a forensic expert who finds this deleted Google search along with a whole bunch of other suspicious calls she made, including 2 calls at 6:07 and 6:08 to her sister inside the house that her sister answered. And they never came outside, by the way. Brian Albert and Nicole Albert never came outside when there was a dead body and a screaming woman and 24 first responders on their front yard. Just didn't come out of the house. They didn't think that was worth coming outside for. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with this.
What I'm trying to get at, man, and it harkens back to the fact that law enforcement, when they're investigating this crime scene, and I consider obviously the inside of the house should have absolutely been the crime scene as well. The fact that they never stepped foot in that house is absurd to me. I mean, for them to decide, okay, well, we're going to take it at face value that, he never came into the house and we're shutting that part of the investigation down is absurd. I mean, that alone is reasonable doubt in my mind in terms of this. Like, this is never, if this thing is ever turns into a conviction, my mind will explode. All right. Because everything about this case screams reasonable doubt. But, the bigger thing for Karen Read is she needs to walk out of this thing with actual innocence, because it's one thing to have a defendant say, okay, well, you were found not guilty, but that doesn't mean that you don't think that you didn't do it. It just means that you didn't have the proof. She needs to be able to walk out of that courtroom a fucking champion in terms of saying, okay, it's not our burden to have to prove a jack shit. It's your burden completely. But because I wanted to clear my name, because I wanted this to come out exactly how it went down, the defense is going to have to put on a case that's going to prove her innocence, which is unusual. Typically, because I mean, this is the kind of case that's going to haunt her forever, no matter.
You don't want to be OJ, and that's what they're trying to. That's what they're trying to turn her into. I've thought this from the beginning, that the goal for the district attorney's office is to just turn her into OJ. Be like, oh well, we tried. We gave it a shot, and the system failed. It's not our fault though. We gave it a shot, but she is the killer, and that gives them an excuse not to go after the people who actually did this. And I think that was their plan. It'll be interesting to see how John's family reacts to that. I mean, sure, they'll still blame her too or whatever, but that is where the feds come in. Luckily, I mean, it's sad that we got to trust the FBI on this, but they are the only hope in this, and they are actively investigating this. I know this as a fact. I know I reported last night that Colin Albert, a public records request was conducted for Bridgewater State University, where he plays football. And it turns out that the FBI went to his dorm room on April 10th and handed him a subpoena to appear in front of a federal grand jury. Now, that means that they know that Colin was in the house, and probably John was in there at the same time as him. And that has never been, and Colin has never been questioned by police. He's not in any police reports at all. Like his being in the house was hidden for almost 9 months in court pleadings until it was determined that he was in there. And so we know that the FBI is involved because they subpoenaed Colin Albert. And I also interviewed the plow driver. I went and did this crazy thing called journalism where I found the goddamn plow driver. The guy, his name is Lucky Lawfren, and he plows Fairview Road. And I spoke to Lucky and I asked him, did you plow Fairview Road that night? What time? He said, yes, at 2:30 a.m. I went through. I go, was there a body in the yard? He said, no. Okay. Follow-up question. If there was a body, would you have seen it? Because they'll say, well, maybe you didn't see it. And he said definitively, yes, I would. Like he made sure to, especially around a fire hydrant like that, he is meticulous about not hitting things and not plowing in fire hydrants. And so he's like, I would have noticed that without a doubt. And I go, has Michael Proctor ever spoken to you? Has he ever asked you? I mean, you're the most important witness of all. No, Michael Proctor never interviewed. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's got they went down to the waterfall bar where they all were. We know everything about what Karen Read did for like the 2 hours prior to this and how many drinks she allegedly had and everything she said. And all of this stuff doesn't matter. Like none of that matters. Who cares? She could have been blackout, white girl wasted. It would not matter. The fact of the matter is that the car doesn't match the body, and that's a problem. And that because John went in the house, and the cell phone data also confirms that John went in the house. John's Apple Health data shows him ascending and descending 3 flights of stairs between 12:21 and 12:24 a.m., which he couldn't do in a car.
And taking 80 steps on top of that.
Right. And so he was moving in the house. He was in the house. You have to be in a house to go upstairs. Okay. There's no house. There's no stairs in her car. Okay. You could go up a hill in your car. It would not show you ascending and descending stairs. That's not how the Apple Health data works. It knows the difference between a hill and a stair. So they got him in the house. It's undeniable. They got Jen Googling how long to die and cold at 2:27 in the morning, even though she has no reason to Google that at all. We got he looks like he got beat up by, Mike Tyson. He's got a gash to the back of his head, and he's got no bruises or anything or broken bones anywhere in his midsection, pelvis, thighs, nothing. The areas that would have been actually hit by this car going 27 miles an hour in reverse. Do you know how fast that is in
Makes
reverse?
no fucking sense at all.
27
dude.
miles an hour going in reverse.
Look at these fucking injuries, dude. Like,
yeah, Alexis did that. Ban Lexuses. Like that's
but beyond that, he fell into a lawn, right?
Yes,
according to their story.
Yes.
So
that
how
had
was
tons
that
of snow on it,
injury
blizzard-like conditions.
I asked John O'Keefe's brother about that. I'm like, how do you explain the gash in the back of his head? He goes, the lawn, it was frozen lawn. Oh, it's a frozen lawn. That's what
Ice
John
did
O'Keefe,
this. What the fuck?
They are lucky.
Frozen lawn.
They're lucky they killed a guy whose like family just doesn't give a shit. I mean, I hate to say it, but they just don't. If this was my family, my mother would be out there with a goddamn rolling pin.
If there was any reasonable doubt at all, which this is loaded with, anybody's mother or father, would be fucking actually fighting for them. Like, this is crazy.
But they don't like Karen. I don't think they ever liked Karen. And so they prefer the story of Karen doing this a lot more than the alternative, which is sinister and heinous. And nobody wants to think about that. But something horrible happened in that house, and it should be investigated. Luckily, it appears now that we know that the feds have subpoenaed Colin Albert. They know things that we don't know, and they work in darkness. So like, we don't know what they're doing or what angle they're taking, but they're not wasting their time. They're not messing around, right? They're not using all these resources if they're not going somewhere with this. It's just a shame that they obviously know something is up, and they don't have like an ethical obligation to tell the district or the superior court, like, you need to drop these charges. It's almost as if they're seeing how far the superior or the district attorney's office will go. Cause I think the DA's office is the target of this whole investigation, because they're the one allowing this to happen. And it's almost like the feds are sitting back and like, let's see how far these motherfuckers go. With this.
Well, and if they like, the way that I see it is, if they continue to squeeze the Albert family, if they can get to the point where they're actually going to do some investigation, and I realize at this point that they've up and sold the house, which is, consciousness of guilt in my world all fucking day. This dog that he had, and I'm sure he loved, I've got homies that are German Shepherd, like owners of Shepherds. People that own German Shepherds love those fucking dogs, and they are highly trained, man. And like, when I looked at the injuries that were on the arm, it looked exactly
can we show those? Show them. Like, those
up, man, they're crazy. Because it's like, dude, it's like, anytime you watch just YouTube, like a training video for a German Shepherd, every one of them, it's the arm up, the dog attacking the arm. It looks exactly like the dog had its mouth around the elbow, and the paws with the claws were on both the forearm and the back of the tricep. Like, that's exactly what that shit looks like to me.
I mean, look at
forearm,
that.
back of tricep, mouth, teeth right there.
anything where it's parallel is claws,
And
right?
dude, if
That's
you
claw
Google any kind of like police dog or German Shepherd actually doing bites like this, it's not ever uniform. Like it's not going to be the exact same look either. Very similar to this,
he's
though.
struggling. Like
Like you don't know in the moment, it's going to be so fucking chaotic. Like.
Right, he's not sitting there unless he's knocked out cold, allowing this dog to gnaw on his arm. Man, he's struggling. He's trying to pull his arm out. This dog's got like a fucking iron. Like, we all know the jaw is the strongest muscle in the human body, and for dogs, it's even stronger. You know what I'm saying? You're not just pulling your shit out of a dog's mouth, man. There's a battle going on. You know, so like all these things to me just scream reasonable doubt, and like that's the thing I was going to ask you, like. I guess that's the rationale that the O'Keefes, like they dislike Karen so much that they don't want to know the fucking truth of what happened to their son.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, it's really sad. It's really sad to see that.
Man,
and,
that's so hard.
And you don't want to get accused of like crapping on the family of the deceased. It's like, but it's hard for me to hold. I had a long conversation with Paul O'Keefe about this on Facebook Messenger, and I did a story on it. I published our entire conversation just to show the mentality of how brainwashed this guy is, because Jennifer McCabe comes to the court hearings and she comforts the family, and she wears a pin with her stupid husband that says justice for JJ, and it's like, you guys killed him. The balls on you to be here. She stopped coming after I stopped after I started showing up and asking her questions. She didn't come to the last hearing, but if she comes again, I'm going to do it over and over again. And I'm going to,
which are amazing, by the way. Like,
thanks.
Dude, those are amazing. Like those are, I can't tell you how much joy I derive in watching you do that shit. Cause it's amazing, man.
Well, it's like, why am I the only one doing it though? It's like, how is
look, don't sell yourself short. That's hard to do. Like 99% of the people on the planet can't get up in somebody's face and fucking ask hard questions like that. It's a skill set. Don't sell yourself short, man.
I mean, you're in like
they used to do shit like that.
Yeah, Turtleboy, you're in like death threat territory though. Like, I mean, is that shit like get to you ever though? Like,
I mean, I've been doing like the Karen Read stories. Like I've been doing this for 10 years now. I get death threats all the time. I say death threats, but they're just words on the internet. Like. My address is public. My phone number's public. Nobody ever pulls up. I always say, hey guys, I'm going out here this time. I'm going to brag. If you want to kick my ass, now's the time to do it. Come down here and kick my ass. And nobody ever kicks my ass. And so it's just all blah, 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 blah on Facebook. I'm going to come to your house. I get text messages all the time from burner apps. Like I got one today with a picture of my front doorstep saying, we're outside your house. Come outside, bitch boy. I could tell they weren't there because the shadows were at the wrong
saw that
place.
post today. You're like,
yeah.
And it's like, that shadow only happens in the afternoon.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you gave this one away. That's a 2 o'clock shadow.
Up, dude.
You know, I'm like, I know my lawn. I know what it looks like. That's wrong. You got, you fucked that one up. But it's just like, I'm so used to this. Like, it's just pathetic. It's like a dying fish, struggling for life. And that's what these people are doing. This is a sign of weakness when they do stuff like that, because the facts aren't holding up, and it's not going to end well for them.
When's it set for trial? Has trial been set on it yet?
No, but I was, for the longest time, I thought there wasn't going to be a trial, but now I'm thinking there's definitely going to be a trial.
I think they're dug in. At this point, I don't think that they're in a position to be able to go to them and say, all right, we're going to just drop this shit. You know what I mean? Like at this point,
they're embarrassing for them now, right?
Well, yeah, but beyond that, they're getting pants publicly. I mean, you've created a big enough movement that this shit's getting national attention, which it should. It's a fascinating case, like flat out. I mean, I cover everything, man. Like I'm boots on the ground. It really is. And, it's like it grabbed my attention immediately. I wanted to dig in immediately. I brought it up to these guys. Like I think it was that night that I was on.
Dude, that Feral Friday, yeah, you were and Jay was on here and you started going on that case. I've not stopped since.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it blew my mind, and it really, what blew my mind was the amount of information that you've been able to uncover, man, because it was like, if I was still doing active law shit, man, I'd be hiring you as my PI to dig in some motherfuckers, because you've done great work, man. But so as far as the concept of, now I know that they are trying to get John's clothes. What is has that been denied at this point? Because I know that they filed a motion to try to get his clothes for DNA testing.
No, it was allowed over a year ago. and they still haven't handed any of it over. Like, it's like that's what's going on a lot in this case is judge orders prosecution to hand something over to defense, and they just don't do it. And so then the defense has to file motions to compel, and they're not ruled on. There was a motion to compel filed April 26th for the clothing. The judge just doesn't get to it. And it's what, August, whatever now, still not doing it. And they're just not doing it. It's like it's a friggin' murder trial, and the defense is actively, I mean, the Commonwealth is actively obstructing, and they just don't. If the judge isn't going to step in and play referee and force them to do it, then who's going to do it? So they get away with this. Again, there's a reason they're doing this. If they thought that the DNA testing of John's clothing would help their case, they would have done it by now. But they know that if they test his clothes for DNA, there's going to be dog DNA all over them.
Everywhere, man.
It's going to be impossible to explain. There's going to be Albert DNA all over him. And it's going to be impossible to explain that away, because the second that happens, the case against Karen Read falls apart.
It's over.
It's a political disaster for them. Like, the DA doesn't get reelected. Like, this is going to bring national shame to Norfolk County.
It's unbelievable. And that's the thing. Like, as far as the feds are concerned, you know, and I'm of the same mindset as you typically as far as it goes with the feds, but, you know, they're going to be able to have, like, they're not going to give a shit about the local politics in terms of what they're willing to dig into and what they're not. You know, I mean, are you getting a sense that they're gonna investigate further? I mean, the one thing that I know is that there's been enough of a buzz created about this case nationally, albeit it seems to be primarily on social media, but that's our society, man. Like, we have voices.
Well, that's going to change soon. There's an interview tonight. She's doing an interview tonight with Matt Gutman from ABC News. And she's going to be going on like they're doing a Dateline episode of this. And, you know, I've been contacted by multiple documentary producers, and I kind of get my pick at this point of, you know, where it's going to be streamed and who it's, and so, like, this is going to be, right now it's, you know, a social media thing. Right. But a year later, you know, this is Karen Read's going to be one of the most famous criminal defendants in the country.
Yeah, for sure. My point is that I want the feds to feel the pressure to do the digging that they need to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if that doc gets put out pre-trial, that's great. But at the end of the day, what we really want, what we need, are the feds to get their hands dirty and not give a shit about what's going on with any of the departments, whether it be the state police, whether it be like the local agencies, none of them. Like, they can't give a shit about any of that, and they got to dig into the Alberts. They got to do what they should be doing, which is truly investigate what happened here. Because at this point, you know, they're just standing pat. It's like status quo shit, and like that concept of, and I know because I've lived it for 20 years, that the wheels of justice turn slowly, but to not have the judge ruling on these motions to compel, man, are unbelievable. You know, I mean, like, is she in custody or is she on like home arrest? What's her deal?
She's out on bail. So, but she can't drive, which means she can't work. And I think their plan was just to drain her of her financial resources and her willingness to move forward and take a plea. I think that's why they upcharged it to murder, is that so she would take a plea for manslaughter. She's got no criminal record. She would get like 6 months and 10 years probation, and it would be done. And I think that was the plan. It was that, like, we're just going to, but she's not willing to do that, and good for her. She's like a hero for what she's doing, the way she's fighting this. And she's not just fighting for herself. She's exposing an entire system of corruption that I've lived in this whole state, you know, most of my life. And I had no idea. Like, I'm sure there was some corruption here and there. So, like, a cop gets a DUI, they get off of it, you know, something like that. Their kid does something nefarious, they get off it. I didn't think they would cover up a murder of a cop. Like that, like, this is like next level, and send an innocent woman to jail for that. Like, that's insane. Like, and that's one of the biggest things we struggle with, is for new people who are new to the story, telling them this off the bat is just like, you sound like the crazy person, right? Because you're like, oh, the district attorney's office is trying to send a woman to jail who they know is innocent. They're like, come on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that hear this story, they don't even get the details of the facts. They're just like, there's no fucking way that's possible, right?
Right. Because it sounds crazy. It sounds freaking crazy.
And to what you were just saying, thank God Karen Read had enough cash, honestly, to get this started in the first place, or she'd be totally fucked right now.
Totally, man. And we are behind her. Like, our Justice for John and Karen group there has, we constantly are raising money for the, I'm not doing it, the Turtle Riders are doing it, raising money for the criminal defense fund. I think they're up to like 150 grand, which is great.
That's amazing.
But like, it's going to be like her attorneys at this point, I'm assuming she hired them on, she's not, there's no way she's paying them hourly. Because this bill would be millions of dollars.
The way that criminal defense guys work is we typically get, like, we don't do the hourly shit. So I'll get a retainer up front. Typically what I do is we'll ask for what we call a pretrial retainer to handle all the motion work. And as you can see, the pretrial work is where the real war is, man. I mean, that's where you're like, that is where the battle is. The trial is the culmination of the real war. Because, and so she's paid up front. And I'm sure that these guys understood to some degree that this was going to be a case that was going to get a lot of attention, that ultimately will boost their practices in terms of positive, media, if we all get the result that we believe is going to happen on it. So, I mean, that's a tickler in terms of like when you're deciding if you're a relatively high profile attorney, like in terms of Jackson coming in and saying, yeah, I'll jump on. You know what I'm saying? Because there had to be a sale pitch to that to some extent, because she probably didn't have the type of money that would have taken. Like if he's got famous clients that have a ton of dough, I mean, what his retainers are going to be.
Right. So I'm assuming that, like, let's just ballpark it. Let's say she's paying each attorney, 250 grand, all right, or something like that. Like whatever it is, they're over it. Like they're over it. Like if they were to bill out, and they're doing this for free at this point, basically, because they're passionate about that. And Alan Jackson usually represents guilty clients, so it's probably very nice for him to have an actual factually innocent client. And I'm sure he's just as offended as I am and as other people are about what's happening. And it's almost like he's not going to be bullied out of it at this point.
Right.
It's like they tried to take away his pro hoc vice in Massachusetts. You have to get, vouched for if you're not. Yeah. And so that was one thing they threatened to do with him, is retain it. And I heard he's like trying to pass the bar. Like he's the kind of guy that's like, fine, I'll just take I'll pass the bar in Massachusetts. I'll do whatever it takes. You're not going to bully me out of this case. I'm not going to, by some small town, people in Norfolk County, you're not going to bully me out of this case. It's not going to happen. And thank God for him,
Yeah. I mean, for real, cause it's one of those cases where it's just going to, like you said, man, it's going to capture the nation's like imagination when they first hear about it. I mean, like I dig into a lot of true crime, man. I've been a criminal defense attorney. I've handled some horrific shit. Like if you dig into my shit, you'll see I've done it. I've been in the trenches on some real intense cases, man. And this thing just like immediately sucked me in. And the thing that really sucked me in was the fact that she's innocent, and I'm going to tell you, like, there's nothing more terrifying as a criminal defense attorney than having an innocent client. Nothing. It's way easier to represent guilty clients, because ultimately you're going to be able to live with the fact if they go in and you lose a trial, if you end up going to trial. When you've got an innocent person and you're the voice piece for that person and everything lays on you as the attorney, it's a whole different level of pressure. You know what I'm saying? So those two cats, man, are feeling it massively in terms of it, because they believe in her innocence. And, if they don't get the job done, we all know what that end result is. And that's 20 years of appeals with no clear shot that she's going to get out. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm saying. The alternative to it is horrifying, so it's a ton of pressure on those guys, man. And
I don't see how any jury convicts, like I think, they have, it's like if this was a sporting event, they'd be 50-point favorites in this because the facts are on their side. Like in order for the Commonwealth to win, they need a freaking miracle. Like, how are you going to convince 12 people looking at those autopsy photos that Karen Read did that? How are you going to convince 12 people of that?
Right.
I can understand you might get 11-1 the other way. Like the worst thing that could happen, I think, is a hung jury where one juror is just like some statist who's just like trusts the government and is just, automatically believes, right. Like I think that's the best.
One of her projects.
Yeah, some
she's going to Massachusetts right now, brother. She's getting
She's
Oh,
she's
that
getting a
woman.
residency.
Yeah, she's bought a house out
She's
there.
establishing her residency in
Set up
in
a PO box.
Massachusetts.
What pisses me off about that woman is she presents herself as like, I'm looking for the truth. It's like, no, you're not. You just want to win an argument with me. That's all this comes down to, is like, I challenged you on social media and your ego is too big to just
Yeah.
admit that I'm right.
She
That's
has a
all this
huge
is.
ego,
And you're
dude.
willing to send an innocent, and you're willing to support the prosecution of a woman who you know is innocent because you don't want to lose a pissing match with some guy called Turtleboy on the internet. Like, give me.
I think that's part of it too. even with Wendy
yes.
Murphy, right? She's like,
I
"Oh,
think he was calling me the blogger. The blogger.
Turtle Man, Turtle Man."
Turtle
That's all
Man.
that's literally all they can do is just attack your
Turtle
name.
Man.
Like,
You know my name, Wendy. Say it, okay?
She definitely
Stop it.
knows your name.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So kind of like the thing that scares me is I've been doing trials for 20 years, and like the bottom line is you just never know what a jury's going to do. It's scary. It's just scary, you know. So these things that we need to get into evidence, and just so your turtle riders understand, like these battles that are going on early in terms of what's going to be admissible and what's not. I mean, I saw the response, the state response in terms of the text message that was sent out at 2:37 a.m., which to me is absolutely
Google
smoking
search.
gun
The Google
evidence.
search. Yeah.
Right.
You
The
got
Google search, which is it's an unbelievable search. It's like finding like literally a bloody knife.
that's the part of the story when you first told it. I was like, "Wait, what?" Like that's called.
Right.
I think that's what
It's-
the public
I mean,
sees
it's
in
not-
here. And
that's
they're
what
like,
got
that's
my
fucking
attention,
crazy.
too. That's
Like,
that's what got me to write about it. Was
Right,
the
I mean,
Google search.
dude.
I'm like, what?
it's fucking
Right,
Now,
crazy.
what did you think of the Commonwealth's response to that you read?
I thought it was unintelligible. I thought what they got was an expert who just wrote a bunch of jibber jabber.
Yes.
And you tried to use technical terms about how it's impossible for that particular text message to have been stored in that particular cache. And I'm like, man, this is like, you know, I've dealt with the tech side in trials, man. I've dealt with Cellubrite. I know what it fucking extracts. Shit that you think that you've extracted is not deleted, believe me. And that's a cautionary tale to any of y'all out there that are planning on committing crimes and texting like idiots about it.
You're fucked.
You're not deleting shit. It's always buried in that hard
You're
drive.
Googling it, dude. It's over.
Dude. The only way to get rid of it is to destroy the device. You know, and you have to be clever with that too.
You're not-
can't
no,
just
you're
say,
not-
That
"Oh,
doesn't
you
even
need
do.
it."
You can
Yeah, it's on the
destroy your-
cloud somewhere.
Aaron Hernandez destroyed his phone thing. It's like there's a freaking digital file of it. You can't
Totally.
get rid
You're
of
not
it.
Exactly.
deleting
Come
Google
on.
searches.
Unless from the get you didn't put anything up in the cloud, you're done. You know what I mean? Like you know, if you're gonna be a criminal, go to the flip phone. I mean, it's your only move.
Hose long to die in the cold.
House one to die in cold. That's what she
Yeah,
Googled.
I mean, it's
and-
stunning. So, like, what worries me is the fact that, you know, there's going to be a ruling on that. You know, I mean, that we need the jury to hear that, and we need the jury because if the judge finds that it's not admissible and that doesn't get in, it changes the narrative for our side of it in a scary way. I mean, yeah,
Well,
we're going to have the autopsies.
It's going to be admissible because they had the chance to make it unadmissible. There was an evidentiary hearing scheduled for May 25th in which the forensic expert Richard Green for the defense was supposed to explain his expertise and how he found this and blah 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 blah. Because again, the Commonwealth is saying, no, this expert you hired, he doesn't know shit. He doesn't know anything. Our expert is actually way smarter. And like you said, it was a bunch of jibber jabber. I've read it a million times. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. They say a bunch of words, and I think they expect you to be like, "Well, that sounds like something really smart," and I guess they know what they're talking about. But the fact of the matter is that the Commonwealth's expert doesn't even. I've actually read her findings. She doesn't even disagree with the defense. She says that the reason that search happened at 227 is unknown. That is the reason.
Right.
It says 227, so she doesn't even disagree.
That's the problem. They don't give an explanation. Like there's no explanation as to why it shows up on the report from the defense expert as it was there at 2:37 a.m.
Celebrate, man. Celebrate's not a person, it's a machine.
Dude, and it's not complex. It's
not,
a very
it's
simple
not,
concept,
yeah.
man. You plug the main phone in, it runs through, and you just upload it all to a dummy phone, and it's got everything, and it pumps out the reports. It's like I'm no tech guy. And when they did it in the Garcia case and they extracted all the shit that he had been typing for years, everything that he thought he deleted, it was all there. It's very simple to understand. But I guess my question is, have they ruled on that yet? Has the judge ruled on that particular issue yet?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the chance, I'm not a legal expert, so I don't really, not sure how how it goes. But my understanding is, if they wanted to make that inadmissible, it would have to be done at the evidentiary hearing, which they canceled. So Richard Green is going to get a chance to testify. And I've heard he's extremely sharp. Like, this is what he does for a living. And whatever the Commonwealth comes at him with, he's going to have an answer for. Like, they're going to try to get him on something. He's going to have an answer for everything, because this is what he does. And they canceled the evidentiary hearing because they knew he was going to be good. They knew he was going to basically point this out, and it would just completely crush their idea that the Google search is somehow debatable. It's not debatable. It happened. Celebrate says it happened, therefore it did. Like,
at that time, is critical, because what they tried to do is pigeonhole it until the time after he's discovered, right? So,
because she Googled it then too.
She was trying to cover her tracks again, like 6 in the morning.
Right. Yeah, you get it. You get it.
Right. I mean, because when I was looking, so when Sleuthy sent me like the breakdown, so from about 5 in the morning, so when she first gets the phone call from Karen, and I'm talking about McCabe, she then starts calling O'Keefe on blast. Like, according to this thing, she calls him, I don't know, maybe and I'm talking about over 10 times.
When Jen McCabe calls John, between 12:40 and 12:50, she calls him 6 times, and she texted message him a bunch of times. That was part of the cover. That's when she was like, well, I'm going to make it seem like he's not here. He was lying like probably 10 feet away from her when she's doing that, but she wants to make it seem like, oh, wow, he never came, but I was looking for him. And pro tip, Jen, like, you do it once. You call once. Ain't no one calling someone 6 times. Like, you're just going to assume at that point he went home to bed. Like, how bad
she was working? She was working overtime, but she was working a little too much. She should have slowed down.
But it starting at 5:25 in the morning. All right. So no, 5:31, she calls the victim unanswered. And then she calls at 5:52, she calls the victim unanswered. At 5:52:45, she leaves the victim's residence. Did she go over to his house trying to look for him?
Oh, no. So that's where she met Karen and this woman, Carrie Roberts. So the three of them got in a car together and drove there. And Karen was the only one that saw the body on the lawn. The other two played dumb. It was, I
was trying to figure out from my perspective, because I'm always thinking of it from a lawyer's perspective in terms of how I'm going to deal with that at trial, if indeed it does go to trial. And to me, that's more cover up. Like if at some point Karen's reached out to her, right, whatever it was, 5:50 in the morning, 5:42, whenever she makes that call and says, have you seen John? And she's like, what do you mean? No, I haven't seen him. He never came in the house, whatever. And then, and Karen's freaking out. If I'm Jen McCabe, in order to kind of sell my story, I'm trying to call out of those two people who was my connection, because it's safe to say that Jen McCabe had the connection with O'Keefe more than she did with Karen Read, right?
Oh, totally.
Right. So, after she gets that call, because you have to think of it in terms of, she was probably the one who was masterminding the most of this.
Totally.
In terms of saying, all right, this is the shit we have to do. She's probably a huge true crime junkie, thinking of every fucking angle that she can think of in terms of all right, they're going to do this. The question is, she starts deleting everything, which she had to know that they were going to see that she was deleting all this shit. I just can't see why she would have done that. It makes it seem so much more obvious.
Because, and she got away with it. Again, she handed over her phone voluntarily over a year ago. The state police did a full extraction from her phone and didn't see any of those calls. It's like they didn't know that you can look up deleted shit too. It's like they just went on her phone and it's like, well, don't see anything here. Case freaking closed. Case closed. I mean, it's just like, no. I mean, these are cops. You know, like they're not data nerds. Like they're not like they're not. They arrest bad guys. They don't understand the nerd stuff. And so she did get away with it if Karen Read didn't have the financial resources to hire this guy who probably was very expensive. And really every criminal defendant should have access to someone like him. Like this should be something that every criminal defendant has a right to.
You're preaching to the choir, baby.
It's like I hate to see this. It's like, why is this only something that, you know, the upper middle class and the wealthy should have access to? Like everyone should have access to equal, you know, chance for justice in a court of law. 100%. That's one thing I've learned from this.
Here, man. Here. You know, I'm all about that. So yeah, and it's the truth, dude. And it's because like I think about this concept, like we actually just pled a client out where, you know, it's like, I wonder if they contemplate going to her with a plea now that she's been charged with the second degree, as the trial gets set and as it starts to approach. You know, if you're sitting in the shoes of Karen Read, you know you've got the world behind you. You know you've got two quality attorneys busting their ass to do what they need to do in order to get you acquitted, but still, you're still sitting there terrified. You know, because of that impending doom that could happen, because you just never know what a jury's going to do. And if there was a situation where the state was to say, all right, look, we got to just make her we got to get rid of this second degree murder shit. It's fucking insane. We're never going to be able to prove intent on that thing. Let's make her a manslaughter offer. And, you know, you wonder, because when the threat is so high in terms of if they were to go on the second degree and what she could be looking at time wise, and they give her some sweetheart offer, because it's what happens every day in every courtroom, all over this fucking country. People plead to shit that they didn't do because of the potential downside if they go to trial, and the state has offered them something that's going to give them significantly less time. You know, it's like all those factors factor in, man. It's an unbelievable case.
It is, but that bridge is gone now. Like the idea that they know goddamn well they're not going to go to Karen Read with a plea offer because they know she ain't taking shit.
Not now.
It's like no, like that's gone.
The ball's rolling now, baby.
Yeah, and why would you if you were like, you know what I mean? Like you're playing the odds. Like you have a 99.9% chance of being acquitted. Why the fuck would you take a plea deal? Like, no, go for it. And even if she is convicted, like the appeals, like it's gonna get, like, she's not going to jail for the rest of her life. It's not gonna happen. And if the federal indictments come down, after she does 2 months in jail, I don't think it's gonna happen or anything like that. But like, she knows she's not going to prison for life. So like, and she's fighting for something much bigger here. She would be letting everyone down if she plead, you know, like, and so she's not going to do that. No freaking way.
That's what I need to hear.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at her, you know, when you do see her,
I
dude,
mean,
she's looking stronger now.
She's dug in, man.
Yeah, dude.
Karen Read's a winner. Karen Read is a winner. Like, and she's not taking, like, you can tell just by the way she carries herself. Like, she knows that she's the smartest person in that room, right? And she's like, I'm not going to allow a bunch of, you know, white trash, small town yokels who killed my boyfriend to bully me around. And it's like, and I love that about her. Like the way she carries herself coming into court, the confidence that she has, it pisses them off. I see them posting about it. Like, look at her, you know, coming in, and like, you've seen the protest videos, like people are chanting, Karen Read, free Karen Read, for a criminal defendant on trial for murder. And it's like,
it's an insane scene.
Wild. And it's getting attention in headlines, and it's pissing the other side off, because a year ago in court, she's alone, sad, desperate. They like that Karen Read. They like pathetic Karen Read. They don't like confident Karen Read, you know, and it's driving them nuts.
Yeah, they don't love the movement. They don't love the movement behind
they don't.
her.
I'm not
popular.
fans of that. I don't know if you saw the video when I went into Chris Albert's pizza shop and he kicked me out.
I didn't see that one.
Oh, it was a good one. It was a short one, but I go in there and I'm like, I want to order your chicken parm. And I said, he's like, I walk in, and within 5 seconds, he saw me coming in. He's just like, I'm calling the police right now. Leave right now. I'm like, I just want to ask you a couple questions. There's a private business. Get out. I'm like, I just have some questions. He goes, not for you. He goes, "You're a loser." He says to me, "You're a loser."
Loser.
It's a popular insult.
Yeah.
How many O's can you get inside of a loser?
Yeah. And I'm like, "You guys say that a lot." And he opens the door and he's just like, "You're gonna get it." He says to me, "You're gonna get it." And so the cops come. Like, I filmed the whole thing. The cops come and I have an interaction with them. I'm like, I don't know. I just went in there to talk to him and he called the cops on me. I'm like, I don't even know what we're doing here. I didn't leave because I
trying to get a
wanted to talk to
chicken
you guys.
farm, man.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get
Man
the
to
chicken
man
farm.
Help the man's
I heard
business
I heard
out,
it's
dude.
mediocre. Like,
Shit.
come on.
Helping out the local business.
But he wouldn't.
I
I'm
heard
trying
his
to
sauce
stimulate
isn't
your
tangy.
economy.
I had to check it out.
I'm trying to stimulate your economy here in this town, and he won't even let me do
You
it.
fucking loser.
You
It's
loser. So he kicks
So-
me out, and it's just like they're falling apart. And now we know that like his son has been questioned by the FBI. So you understand why these people are like publicly falling apart, because we're just putting the pressure on them and watching this happen. It's a beautiful sight to see.
Starting
He
to
threatened
go.
you, and Sean McCabe has also threatened you, hasn't he?
Oh yeah. So I'm wearing this. So this is Jen McCabe's brother-in-law who posted. I'm officially part of the narrative now, thanks to Sean. He posted on my Facebook page that he was gonna he goes that I'm gonna call Auntie Bev up. I'm gonna call the judge up and she's gonna take care of this. And so I messaged him about it. I'm like, are you talking about the judge? Do you know Judge Canone? He's like, who? Auntie Bev, he says to me. He goes, whose seaside cottage do you think we're gonna bury your corpse in? And I'm like, what? I thought he was just talking shit. As it turns out, he lives down in the Cape, and he lives in the same Cape Cod town that she owns a seaside cottage in. And it's like, how the fuck did Sean McCabe know that? And so that was part of the motion to recuse the judge that was put in there. They showed our whole conversation up on the billboards, and it's me talking to Sean McCabe and him calling her Auntie Bev and all this stuff. But yeah,
Bro,
this story has it all. It's just like the twists, the turns, the characters. Like, this
Dude,
is a
it's
movie.
incredible.
Like, it's crazy.
Did she recuse? Did she recuse herself?
No, she did not recuse herself, but the mere fact that she even thought about it, she took a 15-minute recess to think about it, and
Took
came
it under
back.
advisement. That's what we call
Right,
it.
like she didn't just deny it on the spot. She like thought about it, and then she came back, and she was so offended by it. Like she showed him human emotions, kind of like for the first time. She's like, "I do not know Sean McCabe. I resent the implication that I did. I am not going to recuse myself." And then, but after that, like she kind of got on the prosecution for the first time about like, why haven't you handed over this stuff?
Shit.
Let's get this whole thing going. So it was almost like it failed. The motion to recuse failed, but it also sparked a fire under her that like, we're on to you. And like, we've publicly asked you to recuse yourself, and the world is watching you. There's people outside protesting, holding signs like "Step down, Canone." Like this is not usual for you. Like this is embarrassing. So the world is watching. Do your job.
Yeah, like, but legitimately do it.
Yeah, legitimately.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
be fair. Like do the actual job. By the way, it's not even her time to be the judge. Like, so judges rotate in Massachusetts, and because you want a fresh set of eyes on every case. And so July 1st, the rotation was up, and she's no longer the judge in that courtroom. But she's like in Norfolk County. She's like I forget the term. She's like the captain, kind of like, so she can sub herself in to any courtroom she wants to, and she's no longer the assigned judge in that court, but she has subbed herself in. It's weird that she like it isn't just her job, it's like personal to her. It's bizarre,
which always scares me. Like any time that anybody either from the bench or the prosecution seems to have like a personal like vendetta or a personal connection to the case, it's scary because objectivity is lost at that point. You know what I mean? And it's like, the power of a judge in these types of cases in terms of, because they are the gatekeeper of the evidence. They are the ones that are, because you'll see when it gets set for trial, there's going to be a slew of what they call motions in limine. Those are motions that are filed just before trial, wherein both sides are asking that certain evidence not be allowed in. They make the argument, and she's going to gatekeep all that shit. And there's certain things that, because of the lack of investigation, and like when I was reading the rationale behind why she denied access to the defense for them to be able to extract all of their phones. Everybody in that house's phone should have been extracted.
Oh,
It's
totally.
evidence in a murder. Like how anybody cannot see that blows my mind. You know, it's like I probably would have been held in contempt 10 times on this trial because I'm a effusive lawyer, but you know, for the judge not to see the nexus between that house and what may have went on, at least that deserves to be looked into, when the rest of the story is not making sense to the entire world at large, except for Jen Coffindaffer and Wendy Murphy. You know, I mean, when everyone else can see something and everyone, you know, is clamoring for this to be done, it's just one of those things where, man, it's a great case.
If
dude.
Coffindaffer and
also,
Murphy were to like combine their powers and start a podcast, the world may actually just implode. The criminal true crime
dude, I know
community
my head
is just
would-
going to
my head
fold
would
inside of
explode.
itself.
Just
It would
listen
be-
to like at least I've never watched Coffindaffer before, just seen her on Twitter, but like just listening to Wendy, there's no point talking to her because she's not a serious person. Like I'll debate anybody about this topic. If you honestly believe Karen Read did this, I'll sit down and have a conversation and debate with you. But Wendy just gets there and makes shit up. Just lies. Like and when you call her out on these lies,
She was so
she just
frustrating to
changed the
watch,
subject.
dude.
Well,
Yeah.
Like,
dude,
and dude,
and
on
that
that
was one of the things
surviving
I
the
wanted to
survivor
ask
thing,
you.
like I actually thought when I got a link to that and I went in when you entered the stream, so I was like, these two were just fighting each other. I thought that you guys were just at each other's goats. I went back and watched how she acted with everyone else before you even got on. She was a cunt to everyone on that fucking stream, making
Especially
faces.
Lena.
Dude, she was a
Especially
piece of
Lena.
shit the
The
entire
whole way.
time.
The whole way, you know, and
Condescending, rude, no manners. Like
Hard to
yeah,
watch.
it
quite
was
frankly.
ridiculous. You know, and I'm on Court TV and Law and Crime all the time. I've been on with Lena, and so like my worst nightmare occurred because I was in this Twitter war with Coffindaffer for months, and I was going on for a Law and Crime appearance, and they never tell me who I'm co-guesting with, like who my guest is, and to my horror, I like they pop us up on the screen and they use Zoom instead of like StreamYard or any of the other streaming devices that we can do, and there she is, man. Like, and it was extremely difficult, you know, but I obviously have to remain professional.
yeah.
You know, it's not like this where I can, you know, kind of let my freak flag fly and say whatever I want to
It's
say.
like, but it should be unacceptable to platform her like that, and that's what I'm trying to push. It's
And
like
she's on everything. Every
they
fucking
they
channel.
promote her like when people to an unbiased person who just tunes in, like who are they going to believe knows more about this case? Some guy named Turtleboy or the woman who is a Massachusetts attorney who's been on CNN all like, and so she gets instant credibility, but she's not a serious person. So like Surviving the Survivor, I like the show. They can't platform this woman anymore. I mean, read the room. I hope Joel read his comment section afterwards.
I hope so
Because like
too.
these are your fans. They're all like, this is disgusting. I'm not watching this woman anymore. She's hideous and she's a mean girl. And like you said, it wasn't just to me, it was to the whole panel. The way she talked to Lena, it's like, who do you think you are? And you don't know
Except
a
for
thing about the
Fed
case.
guy, whoever the
FBI guy, he was nice.
He didn't really say much. He was kind of just
He
like,
was fine
damn.
with him because he was pro, you know. Pro,
Yes, yeah.
Karen
He was
Read
like,
guilty.
what is happening right now?
He's the kind of guy I would talk to about this. He
Right,
believes
because he was rational. Like,
Right.
like he was
And he has a
Nice.
different opinion.
Crazy
He had a
person.
different opinion, but he isn't a piece of shit like trying to just fight you.
Right,
Like-
exactly. And I could convince someone like that. Like he seems open to hearing things. Like when I tweeted out the other day the actual pictures of the autopsy in the Lexus, he'd never seen it before.
Right.
And so like, once you start educating people about this, they come to your side. Like there's no other side to this. The other
Right.
side has nothing to work with except for crazy people like Wendy Murphy who just spread lies. Like she made up a theory about how John died that not even the Commonwealth has proposed.
Oh,
That
you
he
mean
like
where he was sitting, where he got out of the
Sitting!
car
Oh,
and
yeah.
sat?
And then the
He
plow
fell on his
goes
ass
into
and then
the
she backed
driveway.
into him.
The plow goes into the driveway for some reason. A municipal plow goes in a private driveway and then
That'd be
plows him
amazing if they did
across
that,
the
by the
lawn. Across the lawn.
Perfectly grazes his arms to do very minimal damage if he's getting hit by a fucking plow. Like
One arm.
It's
One arm.
insanity. Like that's way more of a stretch than what we're saying.
And that's what I mean. And like in Joel and when she was on Court TV, it's like nobody stopped her. I'm like, wait a minute. What? Like,
Right.
explain that one to me. Like, they just listen to her and they sit there and they nod their heads and they're like, yeah, Wendy Murphy, give it to her.
Turtleboy, dude, she's
And
from
I
Harvard,
heard, like,
bro.
if
She's from
I'm-
Harvard.
yeah,
Y'all didn't hear that part? She's from fucking
Yeah, I
Harvard.
heard that part. I heard that. I'm like, I don't give a shit where she's from. She's crazy. Crazy
She's
people go to Harvard
crazy.
too.
So like if I'm co-guesting on like either Law and Crime or Court TV, like I can't like typically address the co-guest. Like, so say if I was sitting opposite with Wendy, like I direct all my answers to whoever's hosting. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that would be a very difficult position for me to be in when she starts popping off on, like when she said the thing about the hair on the bumper.
Oh yeah, that means anything. The Commonwealth says that too. Like, there was a hair on the bumper, a human hair too, which narrows it down to 7 billion people. And even if that is John's hair, who gives a shit? He lived there.
Yeah.
What? Like, and so the human hair survived a 40-mile ride south to Dighton where her parents lived, and then a 40-mile ride back in the middle of a blizzard. That one magical piece of hair stayed on the vehicle, and you think that means something? That's the best evidence you have? And how would the hair even get on there if she hit him? Like, riddle me that. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a crazy case. Like, the other thing that blew my mind is because I wasn't aware of the situation where the Ring camera had picked up her when she was heading over, like leaving the house at 4:50, and she backs into his Traverse.
Oh yeah.
Like I didn't know that existed, because like my question was like, I'm like, all right, well, that's your answer. It's like, because like I kept trying to figure out, I'm like, all right, at what point would they have had access to crack the tail light, and that provided the answer? Because if you're going at a low rate of speed like she was when she was backing out, and she bumped into it, she didn't smash into it, but she jarred it. You could see the Traverse move. Like that's the way you could tell. You see the tail lights flashing.
You can easily crack it.
Right. So and I think in terms of like testing, I'm sure the defense has looked at this. I think that all the plastic would fall into the cavity. It would have been right. It would have been as simple as just picking the pieces out of the cavity of the Lexus and dropping them. You know what I mean? Because like,
like how it got there, right? So, Michael Proctor wrote in his report that he got to Dighton at 4:30 and noticed that the taillight was shattered, no longer cracked. He said shattered in his report, and that at 5:30 the tow came, right, and took the car away. Except there's alarm.com footage at the house showing the car being taken at 4:12 p.m., which gave him 1 hour and 18 minutes unaccounted for with that car. The search takes place at 5:45 in Canton, which, he had plenty of time to get the car back there, smash it up a little bit, and sprinkle some taillight there. It's completely conceivable. And why would he lie in his report about the time? Like, why lie about that? Like, it's like the little shit like that. The district attorney's office, like, this is, I shit you not, this was their explanation for the video showing the car being towed at 4:12. He said that it was daylight savings. Like, they didn't reset their clock for daylight savings. Alarm.com and everything in the world today automatically resets for daylight savings. And daylight savings happens 3 months prior to that. It's not your freaking oven where you have to manually put the one, you know what I mean? That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
And it's just like, and they said this in court, and it's just like, it's so insulting to our collective intelligence. Just like, we're all out here. We know how phones work. We know how alarm.com works. So we know how Ring works. We know it automatically resets. Like, and they're just telling us this, and like, they really think we're stupid. And it's just so insulting that these are the powers that run our society and run our justice system. And it's really opened my eyes to it.
It's scary.
It kind of segues into something else I wanted to actually ask you about. So didn't Michael Proctor put a fake plow company in his report to kind of avoid?
Yeah. So what he put in the report, right, was that that nobody plowed the road. He interviewed the DPW guy, the DPW director, who told him that, like, we have another company called By the Yard that would get Fairview Road. And I looked up By the Yard. It didn't exist as a company. in 2022, that they incorporated it on April 25th, 2023, right after I started reporting about this, almost as if they knew that we were going to come looking. But to me, that's a little bit of a distraction. The real issue there is that the existence of By the Yard, the reason they mentioned that company, is that gave them an excuse not to interview the actual plow driver from the Canton DP.
Never.
Because that guy is the one who is happy to tell anyone who asks him. I mean, I asked him, he was happy to talk to me about it and tell the world that, yeah, there's no body there. Why won't the police talk to me about this? The FBI approached Lucky Loughran in April or May and said, we have GPS data from your plow showing you on Fairview Road that night. He's like, yeah, because I plowed it. And it was the first time anyone from law enforcement had spoken to us about it. Michael Proctor put in his report that the GPS was down. Somehow the whole GPS for the town of Canton was just down during the biggest snowstorm. Like 5 days before, they didn't get it fixed, and it's just down. And that gave him an excuse not. It was all just an excuse not to talk to Lucky Loughran. That's all it was.
It's crazy.
That's
crazy. Insane to me.
That's pretty damning. I mean, that's huge evidence for the defense, right? They got to be able to
I mean, he'll be testifying at trial. Think of what Alan Jackson's going to do. Think of what he's going to do to Jen McCabe on the stand, and Brian Albert on the stand, and Michael Proctor, and think of what Lucky Loughran's testimony is going to do. These people are going to break. It's going to be must see if this actually happens. I feel bad I feel selfish wanting it, because I think of Karen. I think of Karen's family, and they won't be enjoying it as much as me.
And they'll
have this anxiety, but it is going to be must-see television.
I feel that way about every trial, that it makes me feel like a real shithead, that I want to see it go to trial just because I want to see it shake down. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's like I'm obviously not being cognizant of the victims and the families and all that shit, but it's like you just want to see it selfishly. And this is definitely one of those. So, do they stream trials?
Oh, this one will definitely be streamed. I mean, they've streamed all our hearing dates. I can't get Wi-Fi in a freaking courtroom. It's just like, get with they don't have time, like a Wi-Fi connection that's open to the public. So I just can't tweet in there or post it myself. But I'll be there I've been there for every hearing. I will be there moving forward. I will be right there for every hearing.
Get a hotspot plan.
Trial, I'll be there I'll literally pitch a tent outside. I'll be there for every.
Love it. Yeah, dude. Well, when I go boots on the ground at the Delphi case, we can't even we can bring our phones in, but we can't use them. And they're like psychotic about it. So we can't like I always want to live tweet, and it's a huge case, and I'm driving, I'm getting there at 5 a.m. to get in the courthouse because I want to, I'm going to live tweet, at least in theory. And they shut it all down, man. It's like this kind of like the lack of the ability to be able to disseminate information. It's weird.
It's a First Amendment issue. It's like it's a publicly like
the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution is a public trial. It says it right in the Sixth Amendment. That's
like you're recording it. Like everything's being recorded. So what's the difference if you tweet out what's happening, because it's all being recorded anyway?
Exactly.
It's absurd. It's stupid.
See that question, Bob?
Can you ask the defense attorney if the McCabe's in? Wait, no, you got rid of it.
It goes away on its own. He's gonna get it.
Can be ordered to preserve their phones. I mean, they can be.
They've already been ordered to preserve their phones.
Yeah.
They've already been ordered to preserve them. So that like they cannot delete anything, but they just haven't been ordered to hand them over. They've been
right, which is what we need. Like that. That's the ruling we need. So, like the other thing that I was going to bring up, that she's got. I don't know what year like Lexus that is, but it looks like to be a newer model.
A 21.
So like in my car, anytime I back up, I got the sensors, they come off. I'm curious as to whether or not they're going to be able to get that data. I was tweeting about it today because it seems to me like if they be able to get that data in terms of like when a sensor's triggered, or if the car's made contact with something, that data would be in there, because they have it in those, like that
EDR, the EDR.
Do they have that?
Oh, they have it. Oh, they definitely have it. We don't know what's in it yet, because it's in Discovery. It's listed in Discovery, and like so they could find out they know the answer to that. And whatever is in there is helpful to Karen Read. I will guarantee you that it is helpful to Karen Read, because it will show that there is no collision. Like it registers collisions, and it events, they're called. and that will come up in there. And so there's going to be nothing in there aligning with that. So there's a million and one ways to prove that she didn't do this. And they've offered literally the entirety of their evidence is her fake confession at the scene where she's asking, did I do it? Did I do it? And the broken cocktail glass, and then the tail light that's found later on. Like, that's the totality of the evidence in the murder of trial of Karen Read, which is
now
insane.
I was looking in the chat, and Sleuthy asked, I think probably the best question that I've seen thus far in the chat. And where's his hat? Where does hat go?
That's a great question. It wasn't on his
where's
body.
hat?
It was in the. I mean, it's. I guess it's entered into evidence now, but it was probably in the house still with the shoe and all the blood and all the other stuff. That
did they claim that they found the hat?
Yeah, they did. It's been entered into evidence, I believe.
Wow,
the hat.
But it wasn't listed. I didn't see it listed in the police report that they.
Or
found.
no, you're right. You're right. It's not. That's a great question.
Because early in the affidavit, they describe what he's wearing earlier in the evening in the bar, and they mention that.
You're right, and because the hat would have taken the most blood. You know, it's like.
And where did it go?
They had to get rid of that fucking hat.
That's another good. Well, the arm tissue samples have disappeared too. A lot of shit disappears. The Canton Library video has disappeared. So when she left and went home after allegedly, killing him with her car, she would have a broken taillight, right? That's what the prosecution's contending. So she goes by the Canton Library at around 12:37. Canton Library's got video footage there, and they pull that footage. Michael Proctor does of that night, and they got everything except 12:37 and 12:39. It's just gone. Like the time when Karen Read went through there, it's just gone. Like the video that could either implicate her or exculpate her is just completely gone. And we're supposed to believe that this is a legitimate investigation. That
was another one. You actually went to the IT guy there to ask about that video, right?
Yeah, I went and found the data nerd, and I said, "Look I'm like, so I said you handle all the video and stuff in town, right? So when you like when the police came looking for the Canton Library video, what did you give them?" And he said, "I gave him a file, which he then downloaded to like a CD-ROM, like he's burning shit off a Napster in 01, and he basically says that, like, I just gave him the whole thing, and whatever he did with it, he did with it." So, like, we know that the Canton Library nerd gave Michael Proctor everything, and Michael Proctor is just like, well, there's 2 minutes missing. So there's a disconnect there. And how is Michael Proctor going to explain that when he's on the stand and Alan Jackson's grilling him? What's he going to do?
Yeah, they can't subpoena the dog. They got rid of the dog.
Yeah, the dog.
Like the two biggest consciousness of guilt things that happened after this whole thing went down is they sold the house and they got rid of the dog. I mean, that's insane. Like, and they can't find the dog, from what I hear. Like, the dog has vanished into thin air. Yeah, I mean,
it's honestly
like purebred
so
dogs.
obvious.
Like they have paper trails.
The
Dogs
house,
like
the dog, the Google searches, like.
Yeah, I guess somebody
messaged
me and said that in the most recent defense motion to compel, the hat was mysteriously found. Like, they just found the hat. So whatever's it,
they found it.
I don't know. They didn't say, but it's been
like how they found the shoe.
Yeah, they found it. So that's what they're saying. It's just, man, if it's like and I hope, and I'm on here tonight. I want to go on every stream possible and reach as many people about this to get the word out about how ridiculous and absurd this is. Because, like you said, this should be a national story. I mean, you guys aren't from Massachusetts. That's great that we're reaching new audiences and new people about this. Because if this can happen in Massachusetts, this can happen anywhere.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm telling you, man. I told you before we go on, I'm doing an episode of The Docket on my podcast with this. I got a pretty big audience.
I'd be happy to come on.
It'll be great, man. And we'll lay it all out there for the people. Because the truth must be known. You know what I'm saying? So you're doing the good work, man. You remind me of like a defense attorney who's out there trying to fight the good fight, man. So I appreciate what you do, brother.
Really. I appreciate that. Thank you. So
yeah. Well, dude, thank you, Turtleboy, for fucking coming on here, brother. I appreciate the hell out of it. Again, spreading the word. And where are you heading next? You're on Surviving the Survivor tomorrow, right? Back with Joel?
I got bumped because they have like somebody from the Koberger case, a big name, and like somebody that's been trying to get on for a while. I guess they got on, so
Gotcha.
we're going to reschedule.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I'll look forward to that because I want to see you on there.
I'll be on my
Randy,
own channel. We have our own channel, Turtleboy Live. We go every Tuesday and Saturday night we're back from suspension
About
tomorrow.
to say.
Yeah,
Just got back from being banned by the overlords of fuckface YouTube.
We go to the Rumble ghetto every time we get a 1 week suspension, which happens
Dude,
a
a
lot.
hell of an audience over there.
Dude,
though,
your
so-
Rumble
Yeah, it was
numbers,
even bigger. It's
bro.
even bigger.
Your Rumble numbers are legit the biggest Rumble numbers I've ever seen somebody that isn't affiliated, like Ricada or Crowder or somebody like that. It's fucking nuts.
Me up.
Dude, it's
Rumble needs to
fucking
start
nuts.
hooking it up, man.
But yeah, brother, thank you for coming on here, and hopefully you'll come back, man. Keep us updated and shit.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys having me.
Bob,
great,
thank you,
man.
sir.
It was
Appreciate you
great.
for coming on here, also, man. And
course,
yeah, Dan. Yeah, we'll be back.
Throw-
I'll be back
throw my
tomorrow
link
night.
tree in there. I got a pretty active Twitter.
I think yeah, Mandy, get
They've
Bob
been
Motta's
throwing 'em out
info
all
in the
night.
chat there. She's been mods tonight have been blowing it up. Everybody, please come back, chill out. Appreciate everybody that's new here. Like the stream as you're heading out the door. If you do sub up, hit the 3 little dots on the side. Make sure all notifications are turned on so you don't miss any live streams, videos that we post here. And yeah, follow on Twitter. Follow Dan on Twitter. Tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time will be the next time Publicly Buzzed streams. And yeah, we're going to be coming back at you. Appreciate it again, fellas. You're going to be going into a portal. As soon as this stream ends, I'm going to portal you guys into the Shaming of Jay's, one of his streams for tomorrow. And yeah, when you get there, please sub up, hit like on that as well. And yeah, can't thank you guys enough. What an awesome-ass fucking show.
Thanks.
Free
guys.
Karen Read.
Free Karen Read,
Free
baby.
Karen Read, brother.
go.
Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
See you guys.
Good night.